Good morning. My watch says exactly 10:40, so I'm starting, you're on my time now. Thanks for coming this morning. This presentation was originally an hour, so I'm going to power through some stuff that's in your notes. What I'm going to be doing is talking about an extraordinary thing that happened in the life of our firm and in my life, and that was the explosion at the Macondo well in the Gulf of Mexico. And of course, it was all over the news, all over the world. Everyone got excited. And you can see, here is the approximate location. And this right here is New Orleans. And so you can see the people in New Orleans got very excited. Here's Gulfport, Mississippi, Mobile, Alabama, Pensacola, Florida. It was pretty close, and you get a sense of the scale of it. It was quite large. So this is, people were very, very excited about this. And this is what it looked like. It looks like fudge, all right, very thick kind of material floating on the water. Not something you want in the water. June 13th, I got a phone call from a former client. He said, Mark, I'm in charge of the critical suppliers for the spill cleanup, and I need you to have a team in our office in Houston on Monday. Well, this call came at 6 o'clock on Friday night. So I was very busy on the weekend assembling a team and pulling people together to help. Essentially, what we were trying to do was work on the suppliers. Now, there were two parts to our engagement. Part one was, how do we make sure that enough equipment can flow to the spill response team? So boom, skimmers, that kind of stuff. And the second part was, the well is capped. We have 14,000 vessels. How do we get them all cleaned up and get them off the payroll? So I'm going to talk briefly, I'm going to talk about both parts. I think the most significant learning comes in the second part, but this is an example of how you can do something very quickly when you absolutely have to do something right now. So phase one, we don't have enough. BP had cornered the market. They bought everything all over the world. They cornered the world market on those Tyvek suits. They cornered the market on skimmers. They cornered the market on basically everything that they had. They bought everything. They opened their checkbook, and the money did flow. Now, the products that we were mostly concerned with were three kinds at the beginning. One is the absorbent boom, and it's just kind of a tube filled with material that would absorb the oil. And it's a specialized material. It had to be hydrophilic, meaning it would not absorb the water, but it would absorb the oil. So it could sit in the water, and not get bogged down. So it's a very specialized kind of a thing. And we also had different kinds of things. I've seen every presenter struggle with this, and now I know why. So we had this other kind as well. And this is just kind of an example, so you can see kind of what the equipment was. And then we had this kind of a boom, which is a swimming pool noodle with polypropylene with a chain on the bottom. And they made a lot of it. And they also had the other kind that was more fireproof, what they called fire boom. So it would, and what this did is essentially contain the water, because contain the oil, because oil floats on the water. So they were only about this deep, because we just needed to contain it, because it wouldn't go in the water. And it would look like this in the sea. And so you can see here they had two vessels, one vessel pulling one end and one vessel collecting it. So what they would do, this vessel would pull the boom, and then this vessel would collect the oil, and then they'd take it offshore or onshore, pump it out of the vessel, send the vessel back out again. So this was one very crude way of corralling the oil. And here was the thing, that BP actually wanted that oil. I mean, it was still worth $100 a barrel or whatever it was. So, it wasn't like they wanted to throw it away. But, you saw the size of the slick. There's only so much that you can do when you have something this big. And then there were the other high-tech absorbent stuff that we did that was polypropylene. I don't want to get too far. And then we had these things called skimmers. Now, what skimmers do is they're boats, and they go along the water, and you drive the boat into the oil spill, and it pulls the oil directly out of the water, and then it puts it into a tank inside of the vessel. It then goes up back on shore. So these are small ones. This is Ed Kinzer, who was instrumental in this project, and many of you know him. These are small ones. They also made big ones. I don't think that, let's see if I've got a big, yep, so we've got some big ones. Here's a larger size one. This is one kind of vessel. And then they had these storage bladders. We tried those storage bladders. They did not work. They got filled up with water, and then they sank, and there was a big mess. So our mission was how do we increase capacity 3 to 5 times in a very short period of time? Because at the time we were working, we didn't know how soon would the oil stop, right? So it was like, okay, well, what if it continues to do? So the objective of our customer was do not cause the supply chain to dry up. And so they identified several critical suppliers, and what we did is we went to them, all right, so there's Super Pinnacle guy. All right. Somebody told me the other day that, this is the story of how Mark Woeppel single-handedly cleaned up the Gulf of Mexico. All right, so what we did is we had a team of people, and we spread out all over the world, and typically we would only have a day to spend. A lot of these suppliers did not welcome us, but you can see that we were up here in the Northeast, in the U.S., here, and also in Europe. This only shows there were a couple of places. This is Finland, I think, and in the U.K. There were actually more, but it was very, very. The tempo was very, very fast. All right, go in, assess it, tell us what we can do, and then write your report on the plane, go to the next location and do it again, and then come back in a week to headquarters and report. So essentially what we did is we did a very, what I'll call a crude TOC analysis. And what we were trying to find is where's the constraint in each one of these businesses. Now, so you all know the 5 focusing steps, and once we know where the constraint is, what can we do about it? This was, there had to be something very practical. So what we were doing is we were going to these suppliers, how can we get more out of it? And of course you see the time frame now. All right, and BP was saying, don't worry about the money will be there. If you need to buy a new machine, if you need to hire 20 people, and some people did that. They had 50 people. I don't know where they found them, but they had 50 people, showing up on the next day. And, we did some very simple process mapping. And this process mapping was really not for us because we already knew. This was to explain to the plant and to the people at BP exactly what did we find in each facility and where's the constraint so we could have some justification for our recommendations. And so first things first, where's the constraint? Is it inside? Is it outside? We looked at the policies that governed how they planned, how they scheduled. We looked at the capacities. We didn't really do any other data collection other than just walk through the facility. Excuse me, I want to make sure that I don't run out of time. Some of the things that we found, payment policies. We're not paying, you're not getting paid. That was easy. That was a phone call. Sometimes we found a lot of over-processing. BP's requirements were very short terms. People were building Cadillacs, and we really needed them to build Chevrolets. We found this in many places. There was some offloading. So Quijack, this is an example. This is a skimmer. Quijack is they produce aluminum boats primarily for the U.S. Navy, fast boats. And Trinity Yachts, they do mega yachts for, Saudis and sultans and, $100 million boats. And essentially they had offloaded or given some of their work away. So it was kind of like the war effort. It was, where plants are converted from one thing to another. One of the things we did was say, forget about containment booms and focus a bottleneck on bladders. So there were a lot of different policy-related things. In fact, really all of this was policy-related stuff, all of it. There were a couple of instances where we said, well, here's the constraint right here. It's sitting idle. Why is it sitting idle? Well, we're waiting for this. And there was that kind of subordination strategies that we found as well. And so you can see, this is, you can't see this very well. This is this is an example of the sorbent boom, and it was every bit as messy as that. There wasn't, it wasn't high-tech kind of stuff. Now, we did visit some plants in Mexico for, that were more of a high-tech carpet manufacturers, right? We could make pads, for absorbent pads, that kind of stuff. And so this is an example. I don't want to get too deep into this because I think that you all understand how to apply lean tools and find the constraint. But what was interesting is how quickly we could find something and get it done when we had to. So this is just the summary of what we were able to do in a day, right? Simple process. Where's the constraint? What do we need to do to break the constraint? What are the policies? Basically walking through the 5 steps and having some understanding of some lean principles, some lean tools as well. So these were real quick. Then part 2 came. All right, so they capped the well. We don't need any more boom. And of course, now it's like, what do we do with the boom that we have? But they capped the well, contained the spill. Now they've got 14,000 vessels, the largest maritime fleet ever assembled in history. And their daily spend just on vessels was over $30 million a day for the captains, just to rent these things. And the Coast Guard saying, well, you can't put them back in the Gulf. They're oily. So, BP ended up in the shipping business, and of course they didn't want to be in the shipping business. So the challenge was, how do we get rid of these things? How do we clean them up? There's no facility, no process, nothing. So the mission was get them off the payroll. That was the thing that we wanted to do, and it took us so what we did. We at Pinnacle is we built the process, we visualized the process, we measured progress, we figured out how are we going to manage the process. There was a lot of supplier integration going on because we had one customer that owned the dock, one customer that had the people, one person that managed the safety. We had like 4 or 5, then we had the food contractors on site because essentially what we did is we built up these, what we did is we built up giant boat washing stations, all right? 20 sites all through the Gulf of Mexico. Now, a boat washing station was a really sophisticated kind of thing, all right? It was a concrete slab with the I forget what you call them, the piles, all right, that they could tie the boat up to, and a vacant lot. That was the requirement. And we'd bring in gravel, build a kind of a platform, portable office buildings, tents, and then the contractors would come in, and then we had the pressure washers, and so the boats were cleaned up. It was pretty sophisticated. I'll show you a quick video. I think I have time to do that. But essentially, one of the guys, the guy that was in charge of this, said, we built a Fortune 500 company in 30 days. We went from 0 to 3,000 people in 30 days. So this is just a sense of the tempo, all right? People were working 16-hour days every single day. We had people at Pinnacle Strategies. They left. We didn't see them for 6 months. And they were working in all these glamorous locations like, let's see, Fushan, which is like, it's the very, 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 very tip of Louisiana. Now, Ed Kinser, he was in Tampa for a while, and we had to pull him out, and he cried. He liked Tampa a lot. Anyway, so that was the idea, right? So if you think about so this is the scope of the problem, right? How do we clean up all of these vessels? How do we organize it? And then the big challenge is how do we manage it? How do we measure progress? And there were really two levels of support that were required. One was at the command center where where the admiral lived, and the senior BP management and the Coast Guard people and all those people. They all lived at the command center, and there were actually two. There's one in Mobile, Alabama, and then they later moved it to New Orleans. And then we had support at all the sites. So from our perspective, we had to organize the work at the site, and we had to organize the management, the structure of that work. Now, we did not establish, who was responsible for what. BP did all of that. But what we did is we said, here's the process. Here's how to get them off. And we did some work in the IT stuff. So, because the thing is that it was one thing to get them cleaned up. It was another thing to get them off hire, right? So we had to give them a check and get them to sign off and get the Coast Guard to sign off. So the process was, part of it is how do we clean the boats, and then how do we manage all of this admin stuff and the contractual issues, and how do we track all of that stuff? 14,000 vessels, and they ranged in size, from, the 40-foot shrimp boat to the, 200-foot big gulp. Now, so this is an example of what the decon effort looked like. This is the boom, all right? All that boom that we got, well, it's all looks like this. And so you can see that it's a pretty high-tech operation. They laid it out on a plastic sheet, and they went with the pressure washers, and they had the Tyvek suits so they didn't get contaminated, and then they cleaned it up. This was the first part. So now these booms, this is mostly biological growth, but they still couldn't be returned. And one of the things that we did was we have all this boom. Let's create a boom washing machine. So a couple of our guys got together and they grabbed an engineer and they said, well, let's put this thing together. And so here it is. We thought about it on Friday, and they built it by Monday, and it was running on Tuesday. So that was the kind of, when we said, we need to do this, and they said, okay, great, make that happen, and it did. So talk about resistance to change. There was zero resistance to change. Does it go faster? Yes, okay. And I think, this is one of the lessons, and I'll try and get to the lessons here in a minute, but one of the critical lessons in the project was to always have that metric in front of everyone in the organization so they can do decision evaluation, right? Should we do this? Well, I don't know. Does it cause it to go faster? Yes, then do it. No? Well, why are you here? Get out of my office. And of course, there were no offices, but you understand what I'm saying, right? So here's a ship decon, and you can see this is a dry dock, all right? So this was for the big boats. They would bring it in, lift the boat up. They would build blocks, drive the ship over the blocks, drain the water out. The ship would sit on the block, and that would be one method and then they'd be spraying it. And then the other method was tie it up to the side, and you can see the boom, the containment boom around the ship. And there's two pictures right here. I think in your handouts you can see it. Now, let's see if I can make this work. It's not clear to me how they set this up. So one of the things that we did is working with the people on the boat. So our work was not only managing the performance, but we were also working. Good. All right. So let's see if we can make it work. Oh, look here. So this is something done by Bart Penrod when he was in one of the locations. See, this has to download, and so we don't have time for it. 1%. Okay. Well, it was a good idea. Forget it. Yeah, we'll just go faster. We'll just have to talk a little bit more. Actually, this will allow me to slow down. But the point of this video was that the work that we did, there was two parts to the work. Part one was how do we manage the global process? And then part two is how do we get these people at the sites to work in a synchronized way? How do we get them to improve their effectiveness? One of the key metrics that we had was feet per day. And when we designed the process, we set the constraint. We decided at the beginning where the constraint would be, and we said the constraint is going to be dock space. And so all the processes were built around optimization of dock space. All of the measurements were built on the velocity of cleaning at the dock. And so our work at the local sites was to organize the teams of people so they could maximize that speed. So this is the entire process map. This is something that we did to say, okay, what's the entire process going to look like? And this is a lot of detail that we don't have time to go into. But the point was that we used basic tools, stuff, all the tools that you already know. I mean, this was not, we didn't get any sophisticated we didn't have time to do any modeling, because by the time we gathered the data, it would be done. So we did a lot of standard process. So this was one of the things that we did. And again, it was all aimed at driving the velocity at the desired constraint, which was the dock. So the metrics we proposed were things like how well do we utilize the dock? In other words, while the ship is there, are we actually cleaning it? Is there a ship there? Sometimes there wasn't. How many vessel feet per day did we do? What's the first time quality? There was an inspection step. The Coast Guard had to inspect the vessel. And so we measured, how frequently did we have to go back. We also very concerned about safety. We didn't, because of the tempo, and it's a hazardous environment, and a lot of trained people. We were very, 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 very careful. And here's the thing: no serious injuries during the entire effort, not one. And then we also, my favorite was lost time, productivity. Because we were looking at dock utilization. Dock utilization says, are we actually doing it? This tells us how fast are we going, and this tells us why aren't we doing it better. I'll tell you, these were the center of the effort on the operational side. There was another side that dealt with the financial aspects of it that they had another consulting firm doing that. But we produced these weekly KPIs. And so the different colors represent the different sites. So this is, and then of course you can see 100% first time quality. We want dock utilization. This is in the throughput ratio of the total system. And then we had recordable incidents, and you can see the yellow one here. We had 0.3 recordable incidents, most of them at Pascagoula. All right, so you say that 3 times really fast. All right, so these were it's the number of incidents divided by the population. So, so this was what we were looking for was, are we getting better, right? So we created this trend analysis, and we had our lost time, 23%. So this gave management the attention. Yes, go ahead. Oh, here, let me give you that.
How do you
The question was, how do you measure lost time? Good question. We stood out on the deck and watched. Yeah, I mean, listen, it was summertime, and the guys in the tie-back suits. We had 2 or 3 people in each location. Pinnacle Strategies did, and our goal or our mission was to manage the performance, and so that was one of the tasks. Now, a lot of that lost time, we didn't stand out there all day with a stopwatch. It was, we did observations, right? And of course, they would be challenged by the local site management, right? They would say, well, that's, our lost time was not much than that. Well, actually it is. And so then there would be the conversation, because nobody wanted to have that number go all the way up to the admiral, because unpleasant things happened. You got the helicopter visit. Nobody wanted the helicopter visit at their site. Nobody wanted that. But sometimes they did. I mean, because part of our job was to say, these people are not performing. And, I think we had the carrot, one of the problems that we had was that everybody was paid on time and material. So they were incented to take a long time. And so we had to overcome that, slowing down. And essentially what we told them is, if you don't go faster, you're fired. And, so this project is going to last as long as it's going to last, and we're going to make it go fast. But if you can leave tomorrow, we can close this facility tomorrow, and that's okay. And that got people's attention, because that actually happened. We actually closed one of the locations. So the metrics were a central part of what we did. I think as I look back on it over the last 2 years, this was probably the most significant aspect, the most significant help that we brought to this effort, was to give management the ability to focus and understand what's happening in their process. And if you notice, everything that we did was built around the constraint. We did not care about anything else other than what's happening at the constraint. So this is just an example of some of the local process improvements. This is, Ed worked on this, and there were a number of other people, but this was the dry dock in Tampa. And you can see it was so funny. Ed showed up at Tampa at the dry dock, and the next day he was running the facility. It was just incredible. It was like, how do you do that? But so we did, just like when we were doing going after the producers, this was an existing facility already, big ships, and we were attacking the process aggressively. Now, I want to park, just since I have about 10 minutes. I want to park on how much time do I have? I have 3 minutes. Yeah. Okay, then I can't park here at all. Okay, the 2 big things, all right, were giving focus, setting up the goals and providing focus. Giving the metrics, giving the information, having it flow up and down. We had a guy, his only job was to take all of the information, collate all the information, and make a single report that went up to the admiral. And that was his job. So this was critical to the success. The other thing was this idea of what we called the battle rhythm, right? Every day we have this meeting, every week we have this meeting, every time we do this, we get this kind of feedback. These are the right people. And we get people kind of in this habit of, the tempo was fast already, all right? But what establishing the battle rhythm did was essentially give people some cadence, right? So if you think about marching soldiers, there's somebody calling the cadence, and that's what this did. And these were the big things. So part 1, we did the make more now. Lots of fun. We saw increases between 2 and 10 times after a day, okay? So, don't let anybody tell you that TOC and Lean together are not powerful. It's incredibly powerful. And then part 2 was a demob, and you can see these are just different pictures. I If I had more time, you know, I would tell you more. But here's the thing. We tripled the rate of decon, and we saved them $700 million. They thought the project was going to take about 2 years, and it took 6 months. So this is not my number. This is their number. Now, getting them to admit to this number, the lawyers are still out there, yeah? But they were very, very, very happy with what we did. So I did about 1 hour's worth of work in about a half an hour. And I did it faster. Look at that. I've got 30 seconds. Thank you so much.
On the board of directors.